This is your annual reminder that neither Easter, nor the Easter Bunny, nor Easter eggs are pagan in origin. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. And the first thing to keep in mind is that the overwhelming majority of Christians throughout time and today do not refer to this holiday as Easter. They refer to it by some variation on the Hebrew word Pesach, which means Passover, because Easter is a Christian appropriation of the holiday of Passover. Easter and its cognates is really only used in English and German, and then variations on it exist in languages like Dutch, but they're not the most common ways to refer to the holiday. It is those variations on the name Pesach that are more common in languages like Dutch. And then you have a smattering of other languages where they use some name like Resurrection Day or the Great Day or something like that. So it's really only in English and German that the main way to refer to this holiday is Easter, and that has only been since the medieval period. This is not how the holiday has been known all the way back to its origins. It's actually several hundred years after the holiday began to be celebrated that this name that we know as Easter today in English became associated with this holiday. And if the testimony of the Venerable Beda is accurate, then that name was adopted by European Christians from the name of the month in which it was usually celebrated. And that month's name was Aostra Monats. And according to the Venerable Beda, this month was named after a goddess named Aostra, who seemed to be associated with the east or with spring or with the sunrise or something like that. We don't really have any other information about this goddess apart from what we can reconstruct based on etymology. And so this name Easter became connected with this holiday when European Christians who were speaking certain Germanic languages borrowed the name of the month in which they celebrated the holiday to refer to the holiday. It does not remotely go all the way back to the origins of the holiday. And you'll hear people say that Easter comes from the name Ishtar. That is absolutely 100% made up. That is not true. It seems to be based on Aostra, the name of a goddess, but again, that is a secondary borrowing into the tradition among Germanic-speaking Christian groups in the medieval period. Now, Easter Bunny and Easter eggs, also not pagan in origin. There are a couple wonderful videos by Religion for Breakfast that talk about this. The Easter Bunny is not pagan, and did a pagan goddess inspire Easter? The Easter Bunny comes from probably the convergence of a few different factors, including the fact that the Virgin Mary was associated with the European brown hair within medieval Christianity because they misunderstood the European brown hare's ability to conceive a second litter while still pregnant with the first litter as evidence of parthenogenesis. And so the Virgin Mary became associated with the European brown hare, and you can see the Virgin Mary playing with rabbits in some woodcuts and paintings from medieval Christianity. And there are other influences as well, but we don't have an Easter bunny associated with Easter until like the 17th century, and then it gets further developed primarily in the 19th century. And while eggs have significance and symbolism all around the world and all throughout history, there's not really any evidence that ties the Easter egg to any pagan practices. The use of eggs to celebrate Easter actually predates the notion of Easter eggs, because Easter is at the end of Lent, this 40-day fast, which usually included things like meats and cheeses, and one of the only food staples that actually lasted long enough to be around when Lent was over was eggs. And so it became conventional to exchange and even decorate eggs, particularly among European elites, in medieval Christianity. And so again, between the 18th and 19th centuries, that became kind of standardized as a convention associated with Easter. And then it became part of the celebration of Easter as kids would go out and hunt eggs. So neither of these things has anything to do with any pagan origins. The egg is not a symbol associated with Ostara or Aostra. We have absolutely no primary texts or other archaeological or iconographic data that support those claims. Aostra did not ride a chariot pulled by rabbits. Aostra was not associated with rabbits. These are things that were overwhelmingly just made up by folklorists in Europe in the 18th, but primarily the 19th centuries CE, as these conventions were becoming more saliently associated with the celebration of Easter in different parts of the world. When you drill down to the bedrock of the data, there is just no evidence that supports the notion that Easter, the Easter bunny, or Easter eggs have pagan origins. They originate organically within primarily medieval Christianity. They become standardized around the 19th century, and the celebration of Easter itself goes back to the Christian appropriation of the celebration of the Passover, because that was the date on which Jesus was supposed to have resurrected, and so it is appropriated and then turned into a celebration of Jesus's resurrection. None of these things have pagan origins. And the fit for this video is Romanes eunt domus.